It has been 630 days. That's right, 630 days since.
Trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor.
So after getting his lawsuit dismissed, Drake has decided to file his appeal. And this should come as no surprise to anyone. Now, I understand the backlash. I understand people going, well, he's got Iceman coming. Shouldn't he just be focused on the music? I mean, look how long it's been. The original filing was dismissed. It's obviously a smaller chance, a smaller window now that this thing gets taken to court, that another judge looks at this, rules against Judge Vargas, and we actually move forward with this case. But from Drake's side, he's already gone in on this. You know, he's already taken on the legal team. He's already paid the fees. He's already invested in this. You might as well throw up one last Hail Mary and just see what happens. Just throw another target at the wall and maybe you get lucky. Maybe you hit bullseye. And I think even if he doesn't win this case, one of his goals is he wants to at least have a chance to take control of this narrative in the court of law. He wants the discovery to proceed. He wants his chance to present his side, to know that the media outlets are going to be talking about this, to know that this is going to have a microscope. This is going to be a big opportunity for him and his legal team to have their side of the story told against UMG. And he's probably hoping that amidst this lawsuit, if he can get the case proceeding, then maybe there's a chance that they can find a smoking gun, that they can find something that they can use and leverage against UMG through discovery, through this process, through the testimonies, and just find a way forward that way. But let's dive into some of the highlights from this recent appeal. Aubrey Degrassi Graham versus UMG Recordings, on appeal from the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. All right, Mr. Gottlieb, what do you got for me this time around? So we have 4 statement of issues. 1. Did the district court err in concluding the defamatory material constitutes non-actionable opinion? All right, that's interesting. 2, if the defamatory material conveyed opinion, did the court err in concluding that the statements are not actionable mixed opinions? 3, did the court err in holding that New York Penal Law Section 24026 does not imply a private right of action? And lastly, did the court err in holding that Drake failed to state a claim under New York General Business Law Section 349 where he plausibly alleged that UMG engaged in materially misleading consumer-oriented conduct that harmed Drake? And remember that Judge Vargas ruled that this was non-actionable opinion. Judge Vargas cited that this was the context of a rap battle, that the regular listener, the standard listener who was exposed to Not Like Us would understand that there's going to be hyperbole involved, would understand that admits this being a battle, admits all this back and forth and insults firing, that they would take it as non-actionable opinion and that Drake couldn't take these opinions and create this lawsuit and follow through with it within the court of law. So let's see how they refute that and let's see what they have to say to rebuttal it. Open already, one of the early paragraphs that we're in, the hypocrisy continues. Beyond the recording's indictment of Drake as one in a group of certified PDF files, UMG public lyrics such as "Say Drake, I hear you like 'em young," trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor. The record warns Drake's future romantic partners to hide your little sister from him. States that Drake is Malibu's most wanted and exclaims that Drake has got to be registered and placed on neighborhood watch. It also says that Drake could and should be subjected to violence in prison. Oh, okay. The Reach police are here again. The recording does not disclose any sources or evidence supporting its indictment, instead stating expressly that its allegations are based on yet undisclosed information. Say Drake, I hear you like 'em young. And rabbit hole is deep. I can go further, I promise. And this is one of the continuous themes that I see from Drake's legal team. But obviously, they're going to try to narrow the scope, narrow the focus of this. They are going to cherry pick to try to tilt the way that this is framed in their favor. But at the end of the day, surely one could see the hypocrisy and going, well, this particular diss track here had these insults and it wasn't backed up by any evidence. But what about the Drake diss tracks that threw insults at Kendrick, that said that Kendrick was beating Whitney, that had those different implications? That didn't provide any evidence whatsoever either. Context is always key, especially in a mudslinging battle and a trading of insults that is often involved in diss tracks. And yet, Drake's legal team continues to just ignore all of the external noise, ignore every other contextual factor going into this, and just solely focus on Not Like Us as being somehow existing in a realm outside of every other diss track that was released. Public outcry and violence. Where are we going with this violence angle? Is this referring to the shooting at Drake's house? Because again, like, That's an interesting leap to go from, but let's see where this goes. Millions of people understood the recording and image to convey factual information, causing countless individuals around the globe to believe that Drake was a PDF file. Drake's amended complaint without benefit of any discovery provided many examples, including listeners who said, this isn't a diss, it's the truth, blah, 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 blah. So now we're going off of the different comments from the comment section of the internet that Judge Vargas did wave away, going, well, this is a comment section. Obviously, you don't know if that's a valid representation of actual public opinion because, again, people without profile pictures are commenting this. We don't know who it is commenting this. It could be anyone. It could even be bots. I mean, that is pretty well understood with comment sections, but seems like Drake's legal team still wants to lean in on that as evidence and still want to somehow leverage and use that. I was wondering if we were leading to this, so here we go. The recording's effect on ordinary listeners' perceptions was immediate and pervasive, resulting in a predictable turn to vigilantism with serious consequences. Where was the vigilantism? 3 days after the recording and image were published, an armed group of assailants descended on the house depicted in the image, Drake's home, while he was inside. One gunman shot Drake's security guard who required emergency life-saving surgery. In the following days, there were 2 more attempted break-ins, one of which involved a man tunneling under Drake's fence with his bare hands and shouting threats, while the other involved a man who physically fought Drake's security guard. So we're trying to pin all of these instances and this back and forth in the shooting of Drake's security guard on Not Like Us. Never mind that Cash XO, the Weeknd's manager, weeks before had his security guard shot, and there was a lot of whisperings and a lot of rumors going that the reason for this was in retaliation to that. And it's between Drake and the Weeknd, and Drake and Cash XO has nothing to do with Kendrick Lamar. Somehow we're just gonna, again, the cherry picking that is involved. This is just chef's kiss from Drake's legal team. In response, Drake removed his son from school and moved him and his mother away from Toronto, Canada. Drake has needed increased security ever since. Yeah, so this is the angle that we're leading into. Oh, and here's us getting dragged into it yet again. UMG took unprecedented steps to republish and spread the recording, image, and video, violating its own rules. UMG whitelisted the recording on YouTube and Twitch, which allowed users to replay and republish the recording without running afoul of copyright restrictions or paying fees. Never mind the fact that, yet again, we've talked about this 1,000 times. We're going to keep beating a dead horse here that we were able to monetize more of Drake's diss tracks, more of Drake's releases than we were in Kendrick's throughout this period. But hey, I digress. Again, focus on the one angle that helps your case and just ignore absolutely everything else. This permitted content creators to republish the recording and reaction videos, leading to millions more views. Well, hey, you know what? I gotta applaud that. I'm glad at least that there's someone out there who can appreciate that reaction videos do indeed lead to more views, and we don't actually take away from views. Someone send that to some of the record labels and just let them know what we do to help promote, because I'm tired of fighting them all the damn time. UMG's efforts succeeded. The recording has been played billions of times. By contrast, other songs by Drake and Kendrick Lamar, in which the district court relied for context, failed to achieve anything else close to that level of cultural ubiquity. Indeed, the second most popular song in the rap battle, Euphoria, had just 4.1% of the recording streams and views. So Kendrick had the 2 most popular songs from this battle. UMG republished the recordings to numerous audiences that would have had no knowledge of the song's place in the rap battle. Okay, so this is the angle we want to take. Political aficionados and journalists heard the recording at the Democratic National Convention. Fans of entertainment and celebrity award shows heard the recording at the Grammy Awards, where it won Record of the Year. Lamar performed the recording 5 times back-to-back at the Juneteenth Pop-Out Concert in Inglewood, California, an event featuring West Coast celebrities and rap artists. I love how we chuck that into. That's a Kendrick Lamar event. Like, if the man wants to perform a song in a diss track, he's more than entitled to do it as many times as he wants to at his own live event and concert that people are coming to see him for. Trust me, I've been to his GNX tour. If he wants to take shots, he's got no problems doing it still. Thanks to UMG's heavy promotion of the event, a live stream of that performance broke Amazon Music streaming records, and the event sparked over 21 million views of the recording in the following 3 days. There is no evidence in the record that the typical or reasonable listener at any of these events would have been aware of how the recording related, if at all, to the rap battle, let alone to specific lyrics and specific songs. So that's essentially what Gottlieb and Drake's legal team want to argue here. They want to argue that a reasonable listener, that's our baseline for everything here. The big question that has to be answered is, if a reasonable listener listens to Not Like Us and walks away from listening to that track and goes, Drake is a PDF file. Or if a reasonable listener walks away and goes, well, this is a part of a back and forth rap battle where insults are often thrown at each other. We should take everything that's said with a grain of salt because it's music, it's entertainment, and it's the nature of diss tracks. So I think where the true argument lies and the true back and forth and how we see the next judge rule is what is the definition and who constitutes a reasonable listener in this scenario. Right, then they bring up the Super Bowl, saying that it went to 3.6 billion global views, which was the most widely watched halftime show in history. Yeah, but a part of the reason why that was so widely watched was because people by then were aware of the Drake and Kendrick beef. They were tuning in to see what Kendrick would do. There was a lot of people tuning in that weren't even watching the game. They were tuning in at that halftime show to see what Kendrick himself would do. Millions who tuned into the big game, including young children and people whose religious or cultural beliefs or simply their taste in music leave them with no interest in or exposure to rap battles, were unaware of the feud and had never before heard the recording or any of the songs that precedented it. They were unaware. Listen, that's a really interesting angle. So basically, we're talking millions of people had their head in the sand. Millions of people who tuned into the Super Bowl were unaware of the Drake and Kendrick beef. I can't believe that because the media coverage, the national media coverage, this was something that, again, broke away from rap. You don't have to be a fan of rap to understand that Drake and Kendrick Lamar were beefing at the time and that it had national and international news coverage across all genres of music. Outside of music, people were talking about it. It's not like all these people were completely unaware of the Drake and Kendrick feud. And in fact, a large number of those people were tuning in because of the feud to see what Kendrick would do. The only context these viewers had were the unambiguous lyrics booming from the biggest stage afforded to artists saying, Drake, I hear you like him young. Accusing Drake of trying to strike a chord and it's probably a minor and warning people to hide their little sister from Drake. And here's what they have to say about the PDF file. The Super Bowl performance excluded that word, that calling someone a certified PDF file in front of billions of people was beyond the pale. But censoring that word did nothing to blunt the recording's heinous and false core message that Drake was a known PDF file, as evidenced by reactions like how many people in the world didn't know Drake was credibly accused of being a PDF file and now know, and Lamar's message shredded PDF files like Drake. I have a theory, because obviously for another judge to come in and to grant this appeal, to grant this to move forward and to throw out Judge Vargas's ruling, that threshold has been raised. There's definitely less of a chance, less of a probability that this actually goes to court now. And I think Drake's legal team is aware of this. And like we talked about, it's worth just throwing up a Hail Mary. It's worth still shooting that last shot just to see if they get a chance. But also, they're aware that this is going to be covered on media. This is going to be covered by influencers. This is going to be covered by people who are going to be quoting their lines, who's going to be quoting what they say. So it's one of their last chances to be in control of their side of the narrative, to get their message across. So I can't help but feel like there's moments here where we're not just writing for a judge to review, we're also writing for the public to digest, the public to listen to. Oh, we're still sticking to the payola as well. UMG resorted to underhanded, unlawful tactics to inflate the popularity of the defamatory material, including radio pay-for-play, artificial streaming, concealed payments to third parties for playing or promoting the recording. UMG never disclosed these tactics to consumers. And you know what? Honestly, I don't mind the payola angle because we're well aware payola happens. I know record labels do shady tactics, but members of the public, including podcast hosts, consumers, and third parties discovered and exposed them. Surely they're not still leaning into the Joe Budden podcast angle. I think they are. Like, if you want to take this route, I wish that they would bring other evidence to the table besides, very questionable evidence that just doesn't really have any actual just objective backing at this moment in time. It's still kind of more in the realm of he said, she said, rumors, hearsay than something that's more concrete. And yet they still are leaning into this as one of the cornerstones for their case. So I think another interesting angle that they're trying to take is that they're arguing that Judge Vargas and the court has taken on board things within their deciding to dismiss this that they never presented, that they never considered to be a part of this case. And they've listed, using the context of the other songs within this battle, they've also listed the relationship between Millie Bobby Brown and Drake as well. And see here, third, the court found it essential that the recording was made in the midst of a rap battle. like we've talked about, the court wanted to consider context, and they found context to be key in this. In the court's view, because the songs were in dialogue with one another, reasonable listeners would view statements of recording as responding to previous songs rather than standalone assertions. In doing so, the court looked beyond the pleadings to information like the lyrics of Drake's tailor-made freestyle, from which it inferred that the ordinary listener would have understood Drake as goading Lamar into a response, and discredited Drake's allegations that actual listeners understood the recording as asserting facts. And yeah, I mean, you can't walk away after listening to Taylor Made and not go, well, Drake did mention, hey, you know this liking them young angle? Why don't you pursue that angle? Speaking as Tupac's voice to Kendrick Lamar, here's a gift from me. And honestly, in the middle of a rap battle, if a rapper goes, yeah, I'm going to try to run interference. I'm going to try to get out in front of this and maybe take this card away from you. Well, Kendrick's just going to go, okay, thanks for the gift. I'll double down on that then. You want to dare me? Let's go. And here's where they talk more about tailor-made freestyle. But the court relied on its subjective interpretation of tailor-made freestyle to conclude that this lyric was a response to Drake's challenge, and therefore somehow by extension did not rely on undisclosed facts. The court not only took notice of the existence of lyrics in songs like Tailor-Made Freestyle, but it drew inferences about whether the reasonable listener would have known of those lyrics and how the listener would have interpreted them, findings that directly contradicted well-pleaded factual allegations. Well, I mean, that's still up for opinion if that's a well-pleaded factual allegation. And it goes on to continue to try to just say that they had no right to basically quote Tailor-Made Freestyle to use this as an argument for dismissing the case because, again, this didn't fall within the parameters of the suit that they were trying to file. Which, again, is kind of wild to me because it's like, okay, ignore all of this. Ignore the fact that Drake is the one who said this first. Ignore the fact that Drake talked about the young girl situation and mentioned that to Kendrick. And then you get Not Like Us where Kendrick mentions it. Just focus on Not Like Us where Kendrick mentions it. Ignore that because that doesn't count. And diving further into this, the reason that they're trying to say that it doesn't count is basically because Not Like Us did so much better number-wise. Not Like Us became such a worldwide international phenomenon that there were a lot of people who didn't hear Tailor-Made Freestyle. There were a lot of people that didn't hear the other tracks in the rap battle. So that's why Not Like Us should be judged in its own context, on its own situation, because people didn't understand what led from there to this. Because it's still kind of wild, the framing of that, because you could very simply make an argument, well, if Drake doesn't mention the young girl situation, if Drake doesn't give that over to Kendrick and almost dare him to do it, then does Kendrick ever do that and double down on it and Not Like Us? Does Kendrick ever actually mention it or say something? Because it's Drake who brought that forward, right? Especially when you think about defamation, right? Especially when you think about a situation where if Kendrick is defaming Drake, it looks a lot better if Kendrick is just doing this without any goading from Drake, doing this without just any prior incentive from Drake, any past evidence that could muddy the waters of a celebrity figure that could make one reasonably go, well, hang on. He didn't get here on his own, did he? Wow, you can't make this up. Making matters worse, the court interpreted cherry-pick lyrics from Tailor-Made Freestyle to draw inferences against Drake. But isn't that what you've been doing? You've been cherry-picking lyrics to draw inferences within your lawsuit, and you've only cherry-picked the lyrics that favor you in the circumstances that favor your case, and somehow you have the audacity to argue that everything else that led to Not Like Us should be absolutely ignored. It's a hell of a nuanced line to walk. And as always, when you have law, you use previous cases that seem similar to your case as precedent for rulings, as precedent for why the court moves a certain way. So what Drake's legal team lays out is Rappaport versus Barstool Sports, Terrain versus Lou, Steinhilper versus Alphonse, right? The three cases that were quoted that have been mentioned, and then it basically refutes and says, these aren't like-for-like cases. You can't take these rulings and apply these here in terms of what the court used in their arguings, in their reasons for dismissing this. And again, this is what it comes down to. What is a reasonable listener? Because they're saying that in these instances, the reasonable listeners were people who were familiar with the background, that were familiar with what was going on and what led to those suits and what led to those situations. Whereas, again, Not Like Us, you have a huge number of reasonable listeners that they're saying that have no knowledge of how a rap battle works, that have no idea of the context of this situation. They just hear Not Like Us and take it as Bible. They take it as objective fact. We talk about rap diss tracks. and facts. If rap diss tracks cannot contain statements of fact, then they are inoculated from any liability for defamation, no matter how direct and damaging the defamatory statements they contain. This case illustrates that. It is hard to imagine a statement more damaging to one's reputation and safety than being labeled. They keep saying safety a lot. They keep wanting to hammer home this safety angle, and they're really trying to pin this shooting and pin that shooting of Drake's security guard on Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us. Like they really want to hit that. And what do we do here with the hypocrisy of this one? Because I remember Drake saying that, it's BS that rap lyrics are being used against rappers in the court of law, and yet here I am suing and trying to use rap lyrics to my advantage to present my case. Yeah, and there's Drake's legal team running with that. If rap lyrics can be understood to contain statements of fact in the criminal context, then it must follow that reasonable listeners could understand them similarly for purposes of defamation. You might want to talk to your client about that one first. And we finally bring up Meet the Grams lyrics, which honestly for me, it's interesting that this suit involves defamation from Not Like Us, when really the darkest of all the diss tracks, I think, was Meet the Grams. Furthermore, in Meet the Grams, Lamar raps, "We gotta raise our daughters, knowing there's predators like him lurking. F a rap battle, he should die so all these women can live with a purpose. I've been in this industry 12 years. I'm gonna tell y'all one little secret. It's been some weird ish going on, and some of these artists here to police it." And now, isn't it funny? Yet again, we want to use rap lyrics from previous diss tracks to our advantage to help with our case. But again, tailor-made freestyle when Drake goads Kendrick Lamar and he uses lyrics to talk about the liking them young situation. Yeah, let's not count that. Let's not consider that one. And getting down to conclusions here, UMG's deceptive acts and practices were consumer-oriented because they were disseminated to the general music-consuming public and marketplace and had a broad impact on consumers at large. And likewise, Drake has adequately alleged that UMG's redirection of Spotify users who were searching for other unrelated songs and artists to the recording and its practices to make Not Like Us seem even more popular than it actually was were contrary and detrimental to the interests of consumers and the public interest and harm Drake as a competitor. This court should therefore reverse the dismissal of Drake's Section 349 claim. And again, I just find it so funny. It's like, well, you put Not Like Us on playlists. You promoted Not Like Us to people who weren't fans even of rap of Kendrick Lamar when... Remember the Drake Scorpion situation? Literally, when Drake's just like getting recommended on trance playlists, on heavy metal playlists, on rock playlists, Scorpion was just found to be everywhere and absolutely flooded the Spotify algorithms. Now all of a sudden, because it works against Drake, well, we have serious issues with it. And I think ultimately for me too, one of the biggest red flags is just how we somehow minimize how rap battles are understood to a general public and to a reasonable listener. And we're somehow just minimizing the impact that hip hop has had over the past 40 years plus, I mean, hip hop is one of the biggest genres in music today. And it's not just fans of rap music that know what a rap battle is. That's crossed over into popular culture. That has crossed over in a number of ways throughout the years. But I don't know. We'll see where we go from here. I mean, the circus ride continues, but if I was a betting man, if I had to lay one down on this one, I would say that this is also going to get dismissed. It was a last Hail Mary by Drake's legal team. And yeah, hopefully this one can finally be the final nail in the coffin. This matter can get put to rest, and we can start to move forward and look forward to new releases this year and new music incoming. Comment down below. Let me know if you guys think that Drake has a chance in this situation, or even if you're just tired of this lawsuit and tired of talking about all this and what you ultimately think the impact is on rap battles and on hip hop in general. Comment down below. Thank you as always for being here, for your time. I love you guys. Hope you're having a great weekend. Take care of this. I'll catch you again.